Forbes India and Indeed present Top 30 Talent Leaders of 2025.
To be recognized as one of the top 30 talent leaders, I think there is an element of pride. At the same time, there is an element of humility. Pride that, yes, you're part of an organization and a function which is starting to be called out as strategic, as a differentiator, in terms of enabling organization journey of growth, of ambition, and of, creating impact in the larger scheme of things. And humility because you're part of a larger bunch of people who are doing equal quality of work and making a difference out there in terms of enabling business. So for me, it's both a sense of pride as well as humility. I think the journey has been long in terms of starting maybe 20 plus years back, and I wouldn't pick out one phase of the journey which you cherish. I think across phases you've had milestones which helped you evolve a leader what you are today in terms of taking the talent piece ahead. So, but today, I think if you have to really pick one, which is I think the question out here, it'll be where you could really create large scale transformation, large scale outcomes to enable business. So, whether it was anchoring project anchor, for the organization level in terms of talent retention, employee engagement, picking up new joinee assimilation as well as immersion, and just creating the entire rhythm of ensuring that talent which comes on board is taken care in terms of their career, in terms of their assimilation, as well as creating impact and building capability. And very recently, the project which I have done, at Birlasoft itself is Project Athena, from a capability and foundational building, which is again, the entire 9 yards from the org design to capacity building in terms of talent which we need, to capability building across all streams of technical, sales, delivery, and then, of course, leadership pipeline for ensuring that your organization is ready for the future. So I think this is when you touch all the pieces across the industry in terms of the business pillars. You partner with business, and you're not an isolated function which is doing something, which is good to do, but probably doesn't create impact for business. So for me, these pieces of work which have enabled business, which have yielded business outcomes in the journey of the organization is something I cherish because you were completely in the trenches and embedded in the business. So for me, I think it's about both humility, honesty, and I think hard work cannot replace anything in your journey of working with people in an industry which is all about people, and there is nothing else which creates a difference for the customers. And last but not the least, I think whenever you take decisions, one thing I have learned is it's a combination of both. You have to be data savvy, you have to get into details, you should be able to analyze data, which is whether business metrics, people metrics, talent metrics, skill metrics, but also not ignore your experience you have picked up on the way and your intuition. So for me, that combination is something one should not ignore, is again something I learned through some of the mentors and the career anchors I have worked with. I think when we all started, maybe 25 years back, I think it was more, enabling in terms of, doing stuff on the side, maintaining some of the rhythms and the records and the compliances to start with, knowing the laws of the land. Today, if you see, that is hygiene now. You just can't survive being an HR leader or a talent leader by just being on the edges or on the boundaries. You have to be now a business partner. So for me, that is a big transition, from being out there as holding the office, ensuring compliances, to now enabling in terms of partnering with business. Now, for that to happen, I think you have to be deeply embedded in the business. You should have a seat at the table. And today, I think HR function, talent leaders, talent partners, HR business partners, whichever way we want to look at them in terms of the levels in the organization, have to all get to the seat on the table. And that's only possible if you know your business, you understand your balance sheet, you understand your financial ratios, You also know what in your business, what is the role of the talent which is running the show for the organization. Tough one. I think you learn it with experience. Sometimes you initially have those frequently asked questions to the candidates whom you're interviewing, and I think we through our stages of interviews and our career, what is very different is at what level you are evaluating talent. Sometimes it is a technical talent, and I think a lot of assessment happens technically, so a lot of weeding out happens there, and then it's more about the organizational fit and the communication skills, which I think are easy to gauge. What becomes very tough is, if you ask me, is leadership hiring, is hiring folks for various different leadership roles, and especially if the organization is in a transformation journey. So how do you really get people who are okay with ambiguity, who have a strong set of values, who've done it, in their previous charters or roles, and can transition well, into an organization which is going through its own journey of change and transformation. For me, the way I look at it is, really understanding, in their various career milestones, what have they done. And when you start getting a little deeper into their projects, into their assignments, you definitely get glimpses, examples, and also situations where they would have done some of this, what you are looking for. So I think the more specific you are in the kind of questions you ask, I think gives you that signal. A little more probing, a little more specific gives you a lot more authentic answers. And somewhere I think, down the line with experience, you figure it out that the candidates who are genuine, authentic, they really have a grip of what they have been doing in terms of both, content and the depth of content. And it gives you that feeling towards the, second half of the conversation that this is worth pursuing. Yeah, so if I was not a talent leader, maybe I would have been a professor teaching at a university, or would have probably worked to crack the IAS, examination. These were two of my childhood dreams as I was growing, but I think as we went into college, probably drifted into something else, and this is where I am today. I think living in cities like Mumbai or Bangalore or Gurgaon, one super hero or a super capability or a power you would want is how do you crash the commute time. So if you could fly across places without depending on somebody else, would be a hard reality to crack. So spotting this kind of people who are quietly, the soldiers or the commanders, creating impact without creating any noise, and not seeking attention, but doing the most valuable work for your organization, are often missed out. So we as leaders need to build that ability to spot those people and not ignore and not wake up to certain shocks when some of these decide to move on. So there are two people in my lives, who keep me grounded as well as make me fly, and they are the ones from whom I have learned the most. One is my mom. She's been a homemaker while I was growing and I was working. And as people retire at 60, and that's exactly the age she started to work, embracing technology, starting a school. And at times today, it's 12 years she's into this starting of school with 400 children today, starting at some 10 children, in her garage. And when I see her and I see her struggle in terms of technology, people, management, team dynamics, politics, and when I look at my work, and sometimes when you have a dull moment, you talk to her, you really get nuggets which you do not read in books. So for me, she's my go-to person when things are going in a different direction. On the other side, I have my daughter, a 24-year-old who ensures that she keeps you on your toes in terms of being the leader, who is more adaptable and approachable and accepted in today's ways of working and changed work environment, because she's the one who's kept ensuring that I keep my unconscious biases under check. I get conscious about my unconscious biases, and of course a lot more technical fluency, a lot more less judging as a leader, as a person, as an individual. I'm an early morning person, so whether it was starting in Bangalore, then moving, getting transferred to Gurgaon, or even then Chennai and now Mumbai. So one habit which is still on and I have never diluted it is reaching office really ahead of time. And it's, I think, a personal selfish reason to be able to drive without the traffic. Practical piece of advice to the talent leaders out there. Of course, I'm sure there is lots each one of them are doing in their own space, in their own context, and which is working for them, because all of us could be in different industries, different sectors, and different stages of career of that organization, how it is evolving. But one thing I think which works, has worked and will work for all talent leaders is being adaptable, being seen as enablers for the talent in the organization, helping them navigate, and not being seen as somebody who represents the organizational management or the leadership team. I think people need that safe space with you. People want that psychological safety, that if I'm sharing something with this team or this function, it is about authentic conversation. So one thing I will urge people is be extremely careful of how you provide and set that environment in the organization, because you have to balance both being a business partner as well as a very very strong employee advocate, and those employees should look up to this organization and this function.
Forbes India and Indeed present Top 30 Talent Leaders of 2025.